Hi guys, this is Fiona. Welcome back to my channel, and I'm back with the tutorial to show you how I made the fairy folio trifold journal, and I made it out of 3 envelopes as I explained in the previous video. These are C5 size envelopes, and when you fold in half an A4 piece of paper they fit inside. I'm just putting them together, putting the first one inside, putting the first two, one inside the other, and then the third one is going to be glued to the outside of the second one, like so. So just putting my glue all the way around, all over the flap, the back of the flap of that one, and then putting it inside the other one until the creases line up there. And then this flap is just going to get glued down onto the page there, onto the back of the envelope. And then I'm just turning it over and gluing down the third one. Just making sure that's all glued down properly. Now you just need a couple of pieces of cardstock that are going to fit inside where you want your pockets to be, inside those envelopes. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to cut down the opening slightly so that the pocket sits back, the opening of the pocket sits back from the spine, from the folds, so that you can easily slide things in and out of the pocket. So I've cut those two down, the two pockets. I've just cut them, as I said, so that they're away from the fold slightly, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do with those after. But I'm just putting some calico fabric on to both the spines, both of the spine pieces. I'm just gluing it down just to add some strength there. using plenty of tacky glue to make sure the fabric sticks down nicely. And this will just add some strength for when we sew our signature in, and for the opening and closing of the journal. So you could use any fabric you wanted. I've just used a cotton calico there. Now I've cut down 2 pieces of cardstock, and I'm inking everything up. I'm not going to put these in just yet, but they're going to go inside that first envelope where I'm going to have a pocket, and the third one where I'm going to have the pocket as well. So that will create our pocket and give me something to glue my paper onto. So I'm just deciding which papers I want to use. I'm using the Forest Fairies kit that's in my Etsy shop, and I will link that below. Just deciding what I want on my cover. Okay, so I ended up using the fairy picture. Hang on, you'll see in a minute. I ended up using this page on the cover, but I decided I didn't like how wide the border was around the paper. The envelope's a fair bit bigger. So what I did was I got some cream cardstock and I put that underneath my paper so that there's a bit more of a border there. And it also strengthens up your folio as well. So I'm just cutting it down to size. And so that just gives me a smaller border around the envelope, and then a bit more of a border for the paper as well. And I'm going to ink it up really well because you'll be able to see the edges. And I just want it to be a bit darker and a bit grungier to fit in with the colour of the envelopes a bit better. And I'm just going to glue this down to my cover. course, if you're not using a printable and you have a larger piece of cardstock, you wouldn't need to add the cardstock behind the printable paper. But I actually quite like it with the cream cardstock behind. I think it adds something. So now I'm going to do the back in the same way. And that's the image that I put on the back there. And I'm just finding the halfway point on the cover so that I can put my closure on there. So I'm going to punch some holes with my crocodile into 2 pieces of cardstock, and then I'm going to cut out 2 circles. They're 1-inch circles that I've used, and I'm just going to punch them out and glue them together. It just makes it a bit more sturdy than just using 1 piece of cardstock. Just making the hole in my cover. I'll just glue those 2 together and ink them up. And then I'm just going to find a, I always forget the name of those things, a eyelet that I want to use. It's going to fit in there. And then just using my crocodile to attach the eyelet. So I've cut down these pieces of cardstock slightly because I don't need to be the whole width of the pocket. And I'm going to glue them inside the pocket. And you see that I just marked around the edge of the opening there so that I don't get glue on that part, because I don't want to put the glue on there until I actually glue the paper down. So just gluing that in there to make a pocket, a full pocket. And I'll do the same with the other side. So I'm just inking all the way around the pocket before I glue any paper down. So I need to cut my paper down to size. And I'm also going to line this with cardstock because the paper's not really big enough to, well, we'd end up with a large border the same as on the cover. So I did the same thing with the cardstock underneath these panels. So I'm just gluing my cardstock down and then I'll glue the paper on the top. Now I'm going to find the halfway point so that I can put a little semicircle in there so we can get things in and out of the pocket easily. And then I'll make the other pocket on the right hand side in exactly the same way. So I've done both pockets now. Now I'm going to glue down one of the pages onto the center panel. And this one I've just used the paper because you can't actually see, but I left a gap at the bottom because I'm going to add a pocket. So I was able to put the paper all the way to the top of the envelope. And I'll be adding cardstock to the back of that anyway, to the outside, so that will make it more sturdy. Actually, I've already done that on the back. Yeah, on the back panel I've added some cardstock, so it doesn't matter too much that I've just added the paper here. So I just lined this one up with the top edge and left a bit of a gap at the bottom because I'm adding a pocket anyway. And making sure it's not too close to the folds so that the folio can still fold, open and close properly. So then I grabbed a piece of cardstock. I was just deciding what I was going to use for the pocket here. So I'll cut that down to the width of the paper and to the height that I want it to be. Then I'm going to cut my paper down to size. Then I'll punch out a little notch in the top of my pocket again. And then just glue the pocket down on the 3 sides. So then I cut a piece of cardstock for the final panel and glued my piece of paper down onto that one. I didn't add a pocket or anything to this one, but you could if you wanted to, a pocket or a belly band or a side tuck or something like that. I did think about it. So now I think it's time for me to get my journal part ready and fold all my pages. So I've printed my front page there onto some coffee dyed paper because I want it to have the coffee dyed look on the inside. And I'm just folding up some plain coffee dyed pieces of paper. And I think I used about 8 pages in this one. So you end up with 16 pages when you folded them in half, or that's 32 pages front and back. Just putting all my pages inside one another to create a signature. And then I'm just going to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So I'm just going to mark where I want my holes. And there'll be roughly 1 hole in the middle, and then about 1 inch to 1.5 inches from either end, top and bottom. I'm just putting on some little bulldog clips just to hold it all, the pages all together. And I'm just going to poke my holes through the signature and the cover. I didn't really measure too much, bother measuring, because it's only 3 holes and you can sort of see where you want to put those. And for my thread, I'm just using some twine, and I measure it to about 3 heights, or 3 to 3.5 heights of the book height. Just taking it in through the center hole and out through the outside, and then I go up through the top hole. And then down, all the way down to the bottom. And then back in through the center hole. Being careful not to catch your thread as you put it back through. And then you just pull it really tight and make sure everything's really snug, and tie a knot. So now I'm just going to attach some string for the closure. I just roughly decide how many times I want to wrap it around. I think I started off wrapping it around 3 times, and then I found that it was probably a bit much, and I end up just wrapping it around twice. So I'll just start by tying it around the little circle there, just tying it in a knot. Snipping it off and then tucking the end in, and then just wrap it around a couple of times. And that's the closure. So now I'm just using some of the ephemera pieces. Some of them are from the kit with the pages, and some of them are from the separate ephemera kit. I don't think I show you all the little bits and pieces that I add in this video, but in the flip through, if you've watched that, which was the previous video, you'll see what I've added. And so I've already made a large journal card to go into the front and back pockets. And here I'm making a couple more tall tags to go into the center pocket. This is just cream cardstock that I'm using. And I'm just using some of the leftover pages to cover to make the tall tag. I just punched a hole and added one of my little reinforcement rings. And my reinforcement rings, I actually ink them up before I even use them. I just spend some time just inking them up so that when I go to use them, they're already inked. And I ended up putting some string in the top of those as well. And I think that's all I did for this video. And yeah, so the previous video was the flip through, so I'll link that below if you haven't seen it. So that's how I made the Trifold journal, and here I'm using some of the fairy journal words and gluing them down. These are part of the kit as well.